Una de las cosas para nosotros más interesantes es que, bueno, pues la principal herramienta que ha utilizado para la experimentación es el entrenamiento. Y quizá el hecho de que sea una de las investigadoras más relevantes en cognición animal de la historia enturbia o oscurece un poco el hecho de que por los objetivos conseguidos con los animales experimentales, particularmente con Alex, también es una de las entrenadoras mejores, una de las entrenadoras de animales mejores de la historia. ¿Sabes? Entonces, ahora sí que queríamos hacer unas cuantas preguntas que estuvieran más referidas a este área. Hay una primera pregunta que no tengo problema en que se extienda a todo lo que desee, que es ¿por qué el condicionamiento operante no era un modelo de enseñanza funcional para la investigación de las capacidades cognitivas de Alex?
Because at the time I transferred to this field, I was getting a doctorate at Harvard in theoretical chemistry. So that made me think that I was quite smart. And I was trying to read a paper by a researcher who was using operant conditioning to train an ape to do some mathematical study. And it took me 2 hours to understand the training technique and all the conditions. And I thought, if it's taking a Harvard PhD in theoretical chemistry 2 hours to figure this out, it wasn't surprising it took the ape 6,000 trials, and that wasn't going to be the way I wanted to do my work.
Que en el mundo del entrenamiento de perros, como sus libros, por desgracia, no están traducidos al castellano, mucha gente no conoce el entrenamiento modelo rival. Entonces, brevemente, ¿en qué consiste la forma de entrenamiento modelo rival? ¿Y cuáles son las premisas sobre capacidades sociales de las que parte el entrenamiento modelo rival?
Okay, the premise is that the brain is a social information processor and not a black box, which is what the Skinnerians believe. Okay, and the model rival technique was initially developed by my colleague in Germany, Dietmar Todt, who was an ethologist studying birdsong, and he would watch the birds and see that, you know, the adult birds would be singing and the little chicks would be watching and listening, and he thought that it was social interaction that caused the learning. And he was in Köhler's lab, and they were working with gray parrots, and he was assigned the task of training these gray parrots, in his case, to speak German. So he said, well, we'll set it up so that 2 humans do what the adult birds do. So one person is the model for the bird's behavior, asking questions of the other person who's not only the respondent but the rival for the attention of the younger student. And you're therefore showing the bird what it's supposed to learn, or the subject, it doesn't have to be a bird, what it has to learn. What we did to adapt the technique and change it from Dietmar's was we exchanged the roles of model, rival, and trainer, so that one person is not always the questioner and the other person the respondent, so the subject can see that it's an interactive process and that they too can ask and learn to ask questions.
Durante el entrenamiento, ¿usáis alguna señal o indicación al animal de que está actuando correctamente? O sea, le indicáis, estás haciéndolo bien, vas por buen camino. Y también, ¿usáis alguna señal, ¿sabes?, los entrenadores para indicarle que se está equivocando, que está realizando una conducta incorrecta?
Basically, we are training the animal to start by identifying the objects. So if the animal is correct, it gets the object, because you're asking, what's this? And it's also do you want this initially? So if the animal says, you know, something like air for paper, the cue is that they get the object. So there's a one-to-one correspondence between the object and the label to be learned, which cements this association very, very strongly. It's not a random food reward. That would make that every word was give me food, okay? And if the animal is wrong, though, we turn away and we break the social contact. And we model this with the human trainers do this with one another first, so the bird is seeing. You know, if I show you the key and I say, what's this? And you say key, I give it to you and you play with it and you go key, key, key. And you're playing with it and then we change roles and I do the, you know, and you show it to me and I go, key, and you go, no, you're wrong, say better. And then I go key and then I get it and I get to play with it. So we're demonstrating this. And there's that one-to-one correspondence, which is so critical.
Voy a hacer un poco de abogado del diablo. Por ejemplo, habla ella de inferencias por parte de los animales. ¿No podría hablarse de manera tradicionalmente más parsimoniosa de generalización? ¿Qué es lo que nos permite diferenciar con claridad y objetividad una inferencia de una generalización?
Well, inference is first trial. Generalization is over and over multiple trials. So if the animal is reasoning by inference, it gets it right away.
Siguiendo con el papel de abogado del diablo, la forma de investigar que tenéis, como hemos estado viendo a lo largo de toda la entrevista, es casi contraria al conductismo, porque a la forma de investigar del conductismo, porque implica una relación de índole social y afectiva muy directa y continua entre el animal sujeto de estudio durante todo el proceso experimental. ¿No podría estar introduciendo el investigador ayudas involuntarias que funcionen como variables externas, sesgando los resultados del experimento?
We're very careful, extremely careful to avoid any types of cueing, and I think that's what you mean. It's harder because you have to be so aware of the potential cues and rule them out. But again, it's a way of, you're showing the animal what you want it to do instead of making it figure it out for itself. And this is very important.
Viendo lo facilitador y lo colaborativo que implica un aprendizaje cognitivo, sorprende que el entrenamiento de animales en el mundo, de todas las especies prácticamente, tiende a aferrarse a modelos que se infieren del conductismo. ¿Por qué cuesta tanto que se incorporen las capacidades cognitivas de los animales a las propuestas de entrenamiento? ¿Y por qué cree que los entrenadores de animales parecen en muchos casos reticentes a incorporar trabajos cognitivos a la forma de entrenar?
I think it's a paradigm that has just taken hold, that it's a tradition. It's always very hard to break a tradition. I mean, the Skinnerians are still fairly strong, and I mean, they started in the 50s. The cognitive people started 20 years later. You're doing a paradigm shift. It's always hard. I think that there is still, among scientists, this feeling that you are not being rigorous enough if you don't do it in the Skinnerian way, and yet we know, as I said before, that doing it that way introduces its own set of variables and its initial conditions, which are not necessarily the most conducive towards learning. You know, in the wild, animals can't afford trial and error learning. They need to watch what the other animals are eating so they know what's safe to eat. If they experiment, they're going to die. They have to know by following the other animals what predators to avoid, or they're going to be somebody's lunch. So that they don't have the opportunity for trial and error learning. I mean, they have to do it by social mechanisms in the wild. Unless you're talking about animals that, you know, do thousands and thousands of eggs, and so there's still going to be, you know, enough surviving without any learning to happen. But I mean, you're thinking about, you know, mammals and birds and such. They have to learn by observation.
Hay una cosa que no entiendo con respecto a esta aplicación poco radical del conductismo en entrenamiento de animales. Entiendo que animales que están en zoos o delfinarios, en condiciones muy controladas, muy homogéneas, poco enriquecidas, que son finalmente similares a las de un laboratorio conductista, a las de una experimentación conductista, se entrenen de este modo, pues los resultados pueden ser muy eficaces. Pero sin embargo, los animales que conviven con nosotros, que conviven en el hogar con nosotros, viven en entornos variables, en contextos variables, con una gran amplitud de estímulos, ¿sabes? O sea, situaciones que cambian con facilidad, que es como el mayor horror conductista, ¿no? Tanta variable extraña, ¿sabes? ¿Por qué, sin embargo, se sigue creyendo que para educar y manejar a los animales con los que convivimos en un entorno social enriquecido y variable, que es contrario al del ámbito de investigación conductista, va a ser el más eficaz ese paradigma conductista?
It's tradition. It's a tradition. It's the only thing I can say. It's a tradition. If you look at the work Diana Reese did with dolphins, training them with keyboards, when she let them have the freedom to choose what they wanted, and when she modeled for them, they learned in a dozen trials. And when the people did it with the operant stuff, it took 1,000 trials. That tells you quite a bit.
¿Cómo cree que deberían influir los conocimientos sobre cognición animal en su tenencia, manejo y entrenamiento?
If you look at the animal from a cognitive perspective, you look at it as an intelligent sentient being and not just a robot. And that has to affect the way all the husbandry and everything around that.
Un poco ya en el terreno de la especulación. Actualmente, como ha comentado, las diferentes ciencias que estudian el comportamiento, pues la neurociencia, la psicología del desarrollo, la psicología cognitiva, la etología cognitiva, están aportando muchos conocimientos de calidad. Sin embargo, las diferentes nomenclaturas a veces impiden que esos conocimientos encajen entre sí, porque tienen diferentes... Entonces, esto nos trae la paradoja de que parece que cuanto más conocimiento científico tenemos de calidad sobre el comportamiento, más parece separarse las interpretaciones sobre lo que es el comportamiento y cómo funciona. ¿Llegaremos a ver algún día una teoría unificada del comportamiento que aúne y trate de manera consiliente todos los datos aportados por las diferentes investigaciones? ¿Qué nos haría falta para conseguir esto?
What we need to do is have more integrative conferences where people from all the different areas are brought together. Nowadays, you go to neuroscience, or you go to animal behavior, or you go to psychonomics. There are very few conferences where these fields are brought together. And I think we need to set up, even begin with small group conferences where it's maybe a dozen people who are representative of the different disciplines to start working more and more. It happens, but it's not that common.
Por todo lo que está comentando, creo que puedo intuir la respuesta, pero ¿cree que las capacidades cognitivas de los animales son la puerta, el canal abierto para comunicarnos con ellos a un nivel más profundo y mejorar la calidad de vínculos y relaciones entre especies?
Yes, because the best way to figure out an animal's intelligence is to try to look at the experimental design from the standpoint of the animal. And when you do that, you start to open up that channel.
Nuestro colaborador en este evento, la revista Ciencia Cognitiva, quería también aprovechar la ocasión para transmitirle a la doctora Pepperberg unas preguntas. La primera es que Kanzi es uno de los bonobos con más éxito en cuanto a aprendizaje de vocabulario. Un aspecto que parece crucial tras su éxito es que durante la infancia se le expuso al sistema de ideogramas que también se utilizó para enseñar a su madre, Matata. Todo ello sugiere que hay una plasticidad mental especial en los animales muy jóvenes. ¿También se benefician de la experiencia temprana de entrenamiento los loros grises?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure that any young animal has much more plasticity and ability to learn. But parrots are open-ended learners in the wild, so they continue to learn new vocalizations their entire lives. I think I think what's important at the beginning of their lives is to establish the pattern of learning from humans.
Casos como el de Alex nos muestran que se pueden enseñar habilidades mentales muy sofisticadas a animales no humanos. ¿Qué crees que nos pueden enseñar estos casos acerca de las habilidades mentales que esos que los miembros de su especie luego utilizan de forma espontánea en su medio natural, en su hábitat.
I think it tells you that there's a basic cognitive architecture that is there, and that they obviously use it in complicated ways in the wild. And some of the problem is that we have problems trying to design the appropriate experiments in the wild to uncover these abilities.
¿Qué crees que puede enseñarnos el estudio de las capacidades cognitivas de los animales acerca de la mente humana?
I think it should teach us that we are not quite as unique as we think we are, because these other animals are doing many things that are similar to at least that of young children. I think it also gives us an evolutionary aspect, an evolutionary viewpoint of how the human mind may have developed. I mean, clearly we tend to do more complicated things than animals do, but the animals in their own right have exploited their niches to incredible extents that we can't exploit. I mean, there are many things that animals do that we can't do. Some of them are biological, some of them are using their systems in ways. So I think it's a very important thing, and especially in the States, there's much less interest in animal cognition than there used to be, and I think that's very sad, because I think we're losing something by not paying attention to that aspect of science.
Por último, nos gustaría que nos hablases un poco del trabajo que hacéis desde la Alex Foundation y cómo pueden colaborar quienes vean o lean esta entrevista con vuestra investigación sobre cognición animal.
Basically, we're founded to support the study of avian intelligence. We train these birds to communicate with us in English. We use the English to examine their cognitive abilities. We also do some tasks that are not based on English, but based on development, the way you would look at pre-verbal children. We have no federal funding at this point. There's almost no support in the States for, again, this type of research. We have a website, www.alexfoundation.org, and there's all sorts of wonderful little buttons on it that you can press to either donate directly. Some things that people should really be aware of is that if you buy things, I don't know how this works for Europe, but I know in the States, if you buy things on Amazon, we have a Amazon button. And if you press that button first, you go to Amazon.com, and then anything you buy on Amazon, we get a very small percentage of the cost. And it costs you nothing. That's the big important thing. It costs you nothing. Amazon donates a tiny percentage, but if a lot of people do this, that tiny percentage becomes a lot of money. And there's another thing called igive.com, which is the same thing, only it's all sorts of websites. So you press that, and it takes you to a page, and it says, what's your favorite charity? And you fill out the form once, and then every time you want to buy things on lots of different websites, you just go to that first, and then it tells you choose your website, and then again we get, it's a very small percentage of the cost of the product, but it adds up quite a bit if many, many people do that.